Peace everyone, Unmaskart here, and welcome to part 2 of illustrating a book. So in part 1, I covered most of my process from beginning to end and how I structured my overall plan in approaching this project. So I'm currently still in the process of working on it, and I just finished page 6 of the illustration. So I have 9 illustrations done so far, and I have about 8 more to go. So since I just finished that page, I figured it would be a good idea to break down my illustration process per page. So the purpose of this video is to get a little bit more specific than what I did for the first video. Now, if you're not illustrating a book, it's not too important because this is a process that I go through when I work on pretty much any project or any piece of work that I start. So the tips that I'm going to cover in this video really work on a broad spectrum. You don't necessarily have to be illustrating a book for these tips to apply to you. So anyway, let's go ahead and get started. So I'm going to be working on page 7 of the book that I'm illustrating. And as I mentioned in the first video, when I first undertook this project, I did a very quick rough draft of virtually every page so that I knew exactly how many illustrations that I was going to draw. And I have my rough draft for page 7 right here, which if you've seen the rough draft for page 4 or so, I think I covered in the first video, you know that this illustration is absolutely terrible looking. And it was simply just to get the idea down on paper and then build up from there. So right now, all I have is this rough draft right now. So I'm going to take you through how I approach getting to the next stages until finally putting it on the final draft paper. So the very first thing that I do in this process is I open up Photoshop. I pretty much do all of my planning in Photoshop before ever really touching a piece of paper with a pencil. And the reason I do that is because I like the ability to move around all of my elements individually and really work on the composition of the piece. So all I do is I create a new document in Photoshop. And if you don't have Photoshop, there's other photo editing software that you can get for free, and you can still do all the things that I'm going to show you today. So I have my rough draft in front of me, and I see the look that I'm going for. That's the purpose of the rough draft. And one of the things that I have from the previous page is I drew the side of the house from outside. And it just looks like this. I erased most of the illustration, but this is what I'm working with right now. And basically the scene that I'm trying to build here is there's going to be one of the characters from the story standing, and the house is it's supposed to be in perspective. So one of the cool things that you can do with Photoshop is you can just transform this and click on perspective, and I can manipulate this two-dimensional drawing that I did and turn it into a perspective view. And then I have that, and I can move it around and do whatever I want with it. Based on how I want it to look in the final draft. I'm not too concerned about all these other things that you see in the picture because I'm going to redraw all of this anyway. The next thing that I do is I look up references based on the body language that I'm looking to portray in the story. So I just jump over to Google and search for what I'm looking for. So once I do a general search and I just get a bunch of stock photos, I look at the different body languages that I'm seeing in the images to kind of give me an idea of how I want my character to be speaking. So I really like this image here. And so I'm simply just going to copy this image and take it back over to Photoshop. And then I can paste it and I can move it around anywhere that I want. And that's why I like to do all this in Photoshop, because if I don't like the way the house is lining up or I need the house to be bigger, I can simply just resize it, move it, And I can play with all these elements individually, and it really helps setting up the composition for the page that I want to illustrate. Now, I like the body language of this lady. She doesn't quite have the proportions of my character, which is totally fine because I'm not looking to draw this random lady anyway. I'm just simply using it as a guide to how I want to compose the illustration. So basically from this point, I just do this until I finally compose a piece that I like the way it's laid out. And from there, I will do a secondary sketch, and then I will incorporate my drawings into the actual image. So from here, I cleaned up my original drawing, took out the flowers and stuff like that, and I positioned it the way that I wanted. And then I added the lady to where she fit in the scene, and it made sense where she was at, and it didn't look like she was bigger than the house. And then I took some of the other elements that I drew, and I just moved them around because obviously up against the house, I was trying to make a 2D object look 3D, and the flowers weren't looking right. So all I did is I took the same exact flowers that I had, but I just didn't put them into perspective, and I just put them there. And then I copied them, and I brought a few of them closer. Now, this isn't exactly what I'm going to be drawing. However, it gives me a better idea compositionally how I'm going to make this picture and how I'm going to lay it out. Now, from here, I don't take this and just draw it. What I do is I isolate the elements, and in this case, the most important and most difficult element is going to be my character. So I take everything off and I get my character. So from here, I just sketch out my character the way that she would look. So now after sketching it, I have the sketch of my character in the pose that I was looking for. And so from here, I just simply take a photo of this and bring this sketch into Photoshop. So now that I have my sketch into Photoshop, I no longer need to use this reference photo. I can simply use my own drawing and place it into the scene and see if I like the way it's laid out. And in this case, I do really like the way that it's laid out. She might be a little bit tall, so I can simply make her smaller or make her larger, however I want, and I can move her around anywhere I would like just to set the scene the way that I want it. Now from here, I no longer have to guess how I'm going to set up this scene. I have the perfect reference photo that I built with my own drawings in Photoshop. And if there's anything that I don't like, I can simply move it or take it out. And from this right here, I would simply draw it right onto my final draft paper. So now I have it drawn on my final draft paper. From here, all that is left to do is to clean up my lines, fix any of the little details that I need to work out, and fully compose it. And then after I have that done, I will ink it. And that pretty much covers all of the things that I do to approach each individual illustration. In all of my tutorials, I always stress how important planning is for your work, and I certainly stress that a lot in part 1 of this series, and I still have to stress it in this video. Planning makes everything so much easier, and I've gotten to the point where I don't even have to think about planning. I just do it, and it just feels like it's a part of drawing at this point. So that pretty much covers everything I wanted to discuss in this video. Hopefully you found some tips and tricks that can help you with your own work. If you did, let me know in the comments. If you have any questions, also go ahead, feel free to ask me anything. Be happy to answer any of your questions. And if you didn't already, make sure you check out part 1 of this series and subscribe to my channel. And I will see you next time. Take care. Peace.